Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Ni hao. Buenos días. Buenas tardes. Hesiche. Aquaba. Welcome. What up, though? This is Café Mélangé. Week numero 6, session numero 3. Um, Somewhat of a continuation from yesterday, session numero 2. Actually, first thing to share is, my bad, because I missed two people, two brothers, when I was talking about giving the updates of our Mélangé brethren from previous projects that we work on. So I'm going to, without further ado, get into those updates. So um, and make amends for the omission from yesterday. Um, First one I'll share is brother Shane. I'm not gonna say last name. So Shane. Um, so again, the project, for those who didn't see yesterday's session, Mixed Spirits was a project I worked on a number of years ago, where I interview Mélangé brethren, talk about spiritual experience as being Mélangé, coming from different backgrounds, how we find our path in this life. And so, very generous conversations, generous contributions from generous brethren. And so, the consideration today is the continuity of relationship with these brethren and the uh, the recognition of our mutuality and amidst a lot of the temporary nature of endeavors today, but also just in life, how projects come and go, initiatives come and go, priorities come and go, people evolve and come and go. Um, when we talk about this Melanger experience of ours, cultivating, strengthening that experience of relationship, and that means like knowing how we're doing and communicating and staying in touch and staying in contact. So I gave an update yesterday about over a half a dozen or so brethren that I do two projects with. I want to add another brother to that, so I got three brothers for today. Um, on previous projects that I work with, and um, I omit dos. I was a little bit rushed. Ain't no excuses, but here are the dos that they omit: Shane and Mark. So I say Mark J. Um, so Shane, brother Shane. Um, the most recent I communicated with him, probably exchanged emails within the past year. Um, and that's the most reason I hear back from him. He's doing his thing in the Midwest. He's an artist, an illustrator, children's book illustrator, a musician. Actually, I've visited his website, Dream Studio 777, that chronicles his work. He actually has an art studio. I think it's called Dream Studio. Excuse me. I think it's called Dream Studio. Um, and I think the website is recently changed in recent years to reflect that name. But anyways, he's doing his thing. And the most I've visited his website maybe most recently a couple weeks ago, within the past week or two. And so it's a video that's been up there for probably a year at this point. But he's got a nice song. He does a a live recording, if that makes sense, of a loop track that he has. He plays a guitar riff, does a little bit of percussion, and then gives some vocals to a track that he lays down. And it's nice. So he shares a positive message, uplifting. It was a celebratory a gift or offering after completing a uh, what's it called? Not GoFundMe, but the other joint, Kickstarter, I think it was, something like that. But anyways, one of those campaigns. This campaign was successful, and so to his constituency, the group's constituency. He shares that thank you offering in the message. So um, yeah, he's continuing with his he's got I guess it's called merchandise, t-shirts and stuff like that. He's got a thing called Chocolate Me. He's got a thing called Mix Me, a book that he wrote with uh, Tay Diggs, and so uh, he's continuing along those lines, doing his music, doing his art. Um, so there's that. Then the brother Mark J. I most recently talked with him probably within the past month or two, um, and he's in SoCal. He's originally, actually, he's lived in a number of different places, SoCal as well as here in Ohio. The land of the Paiute is a SoCal, um, and uh, so he moves back out there um, with his life partner. Um, I'll abstain from saying her name because, um, like I said, I'm not saying everybody's business, and so um, just because I have yet to say it, um, that to my knowledge, I'm just not gonna say it at the moment. Love and peace to her, and all due respect and everything else. I'm just being trying to be private because, like I say, I share a lot about myself, and not everybody's like that. So, anyways, um, I talked with him for the past month or two. He's progressing. He deals with some health issues that often are on certain occasions cause some difficulties, and some physically, but also um, occupationally, additionally. So, but given all those conditions, he's continuing to progress favorably, and so we have a nice conversation, and he talks about the experience of multiculturalism in SoCal, and so he's in SoCal, if that's a thing. For those who might know, will know. So, anyways, he's doing all right. Uh, he and his girlfriend. So uh, those are the two updates that I omitted from yesterday. So that those are my amends, and including that for today. The other additional I'll share today. I'll share one specifically, and then I'll make a general reference. I'm looking at photographs of people um, who I'm talking about. Um, this one was a little bit of a different scenario. I mentioned the two projects yesterday. Was one was I remember what the name is. It's called Belief Briefs. So it's like a brief introduction to somebody's belief, particularly for people who are less familiar with that. So I mentioned it was Jain, Hindu, and Israel, and Sufism. So that was one project. The second project was Mixed Spirits, and that was the one with 8 brethren that I talked with. Um, and so now I've done an update for each of the brethren who participate in those two projects. There was another project. It was an impromptu project, but I do share it on the interweb, and so it's appropriate. Again, it's not necessarily along the lines of being Mélangé per se, and it ain't along the lines of spirituality per se, but all that's involved in the convo that the brother and I have. So the brother's name is Jason, and I think the series basically, the background is that he and I know each other for a number of years. We're actually family friends, and he's been involved in interfaith, and reaching out with people for different communities, and that's the context that I know him. Actually, from attending Baha'i gatherings, participating in Baha'i gatherings, and so interfaith devotionals, um, and so uh, that's how we know each other. And a few years ago, about the same time I was doing these projects, I attend a conference of the New Economy Coalition um, in the land of the Seneca, Buffalo, New York. And so I'm sitting in the bus stop after the conference is done on the Monday afternoon or thereabouts the next day, um, and I see Jason there. Oh, what's going on? We saw each other at the conference. Didn't know we were going to be there, so we already like saw each other. But then the next day, as we are say our goodbyes and everything, we're like, oh, you catching the bus back? All right, cool. He actually lives in further west in the Midwest, so he was catching the bus back to Ohio on that particular occasion. So we were on the same bus. So we're like, oh, what you think about the conference? Oh, interesting, whatever. So I was like, yo, let's have a convo about it and record it. So that's what we did. And so the name of the session that I applied to it is called "Changing the Convo." Um, so, anyways, I'm including it as a project because the convo was nearly an hour long. So, and we cover a lot of topics about social justice, race, the next moves, organizing, community building, and additionally, ethical economics, cooperative economics, black nationalism, sovereignty, and additionally. So, anyways, all that being said, it warrants him being included within these updates. So, I say that most recent occasion I talked with him is again probably a few months ago. I think we might have exchanged emails with him in the past couple of months thereabouts. Um, I see his dad within the past year. Have lunch with him, and Jason is progressing well. He's in the Midwest, further west from here, from Ohio. He's in the land of the Ojibwe, um, and uh, he's continuing with community activism and organizing and providing service to the community, and he's getting increasingly serious with his girlfriend, and I don't know if that's too much information, but uh, what else? Still being the righteous brother that he is. So that's an update on Jason. Now, as I'm saying that, I say, what up? Who else have I done stuff with that I've shared on, particularly on specifically on YouTube, on the YouTube channel that I do? Who else have I done directly something with? Um, and so what occurs to me that I mentioned a few minutes ago is that the specific update I'll give is on Jason, but the general update I'll give is on some dear brethren that I interview as part of a vlog or a recording of the Parliament of the World's Religions 4 years ago, 4 years ago. Um, and so during that occasion, I was just like doing little few minute updates about and showing different scenes of the Parliament. And some brethren from Ohio travel with, well, not necessarily with me, but we meet up in the land of the Ute. And so hey, I'm doing these recordings. Can I ask you a question and see what you think about the Parliament? Get it on. It's not tape. It's not film. It's on. Is it digi? On record, but whatever, record it. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'll say the names. So the ones actually I record, I mentioned Vanessa. She actually participates in the mixed spirits, and she's not from Ohio. She's from like I mentioned SoCal, but she's included with one of the recordings that I do in that series in that blog sessions. Another one was Skylar in that same conversation that I had with Vanessa. Skylar is there as well. So Skylar's a brother from the Pacific Northwest. It's the land of Seattle, but he's further east of there. Um, so he's progressing, being the striving to be the optimal righteous brother that he strives to be. Um, I say most recently talked with him probably a few years ago, actually, to be honest. Um, Still waiting. No. Then then uh, the brethren that I meet from Ohio, that I meet up with in Ohio. One is an uncle, Surrender G. I most recently talked with him a few months ago. I've been also meaning to give him a call. He's an elder, and he's living here in Ohio, and he's dealing with certain experiences that come with being an elder. and so I continue to reach out accordingly um, in the interest of well-being. Um, and then also Devyani is an auntie, also in Ohio, who participates in those recording sessions at the Parliament. And actually, it's been probably a few years since I talked with her. She's in contact with Surinder and so I kind of learn how she's doing and how her family's doing based upon what he tells me. Um, so yeah. Anyways, already spent 15 minutes on that, nearly going on 20 minutes near about on just the updates, and haven't yet to get into the meat of today. Um, so I think that covers people that I've done stuff with on the YouTube channel. Um, so that being said, getting to this joint. I mentioned before, this is a calendar um, of observances in over a dozen traditions of our holy earth. Uh, and so it gives people a sense of um, now that occurs throughout the year, the cycles, um, a sense of attunement with the cycles, with the observances within our holy collective of Earth. So I mentioned yesterday the idea of in strengthening, cultivating, strengthening our Mélangé experience, there being certain tangibility within this. So rather than just existing as an ethnic identity on paper, rather than just being like a name an individual experience, a unique experience. Additionally, delving into what it means to be Mélangé, like just not just culturally and socially or conceptually, but like spiritually, existentially. What is Mélangé? What's the purposefulness? Like what is this? And as we start to find some answers and some direction in that, um, finding attunement with that as well, finding harmony and connection with the progression of life, meaning the ebbs and flows within life, the cycles within life. And what does it mean to be mélangé within this progression, within these cycles? Um, and uh, to be to fulfill that purposefulness as life continues. So it's not just some ideal conceptual kind of venture, but like we practice being mélangé. We do mélangé because it's who we are, and it's healthy. It's supportive of us. It's supportive of our relationships. It's supportive of the service and the benefit and the well-being that we provide and that we offer to others. So how do we do this mélangé? Because we all have different mixes, we all have different heritages and combinations and ancestry in many ways. Ultimately, well, depending upon what our beliefs are, it continues into that synonymity, that let me use a different word, that ultimate unity, the oneness. But anyways, so we all have these different um, heritages, these paths from which we are derived. So how can we have some continuity, like tangible, meaningful continuity, and like on a regular basis? Like yeah, we can have a combo here and there, and like be like yeah, it's like with me, but instead like yo, my parents speak a different language than your parents. How can we like bond in a meaningful way? Um, so that's what we're looking at. That's what we're venturing. That's what we're discovering. That's what we are unearthing. That's what we are re-earthing, um, and uh, that's what we're strengthening. So within that process, within that product, um, there's certain tangibility. I mentioned yesterday there being certain ceremonies, certain rituals of intentionality, of consciousness, of connection to the esoteric and to the here and now, to our ancestors, to the ultimate reality, And then again, back here to where we are today and who we are with others as well. So ceremonies do this, rituals do this, and we've been already doing this. Our ancestors do this, and so it's a matter of connecting with the traditions of our ancestors, respectively, and honoring our obligations and our legacies and our continuing legacies as we continue on with to our children, our progeny, respectively and collectively. So honoring that, not letting that go, but or forsaking it, but honoring that. But also like but in this Mélangé thing, like I'm connected with like all people. Like I identify with all people because that's the nature of my connection with my own people. Is with all people. So how can I like embrace cultures and traditions that I don't necessarily come from directly and specifically by blood. Like I'm like it resonates with me, but how can I claim that and can I do that? What is it? What is going on? What are people doing? Um, what's important to others? And what do I need to know if I'm going to like explore this experience of being of the earth holistically? What is the earth experiencing? What is it? What are they doing? What are we doing? So that's part of what this notion of is with the calendar is like here's what the earth is doing. Here are what the important observances are within the vast many traditions of Earth. It ain't everything. That's challenging to cover everything, particularly in a meaningful way. So these are like the main observances or the main traditions. And so, well, what's main? It sounds like you're being discriminatory there. Well, what we look at is population that has certain legitimacy, the numbers, that's just part of what people are experiencing. But we also look at influence. So if a community abstains from having numbers, well, how is that community influencing other communities? And we look at longevity. How long has it been? How long has it been around? And we also look at message of like, and that can go into the category of influence as well. But so those are some of the criteria that, and this is a product of something that's been going on for personally for myself over a decade, for nearly 2 decades at this point. But this is something that others have been working on for generations before this point. So I'm just a continuing facilitator of the work. But those are some of the criteria of identifying what the traditions are, and I can say what the traditions are in a minute, God willing. Um, but anyways, a basic notion of what's going on in the Earth. These are dose, effectively a dozen calendars from a dozen traditions, and those traditions actually extend to even further traditions, particularly when you think about denominations within a tradition. Um, so that's what this is. And then again, you're like, well, hold up, because in I know in for a fact in this tradition, like they got things going on a daily basis. Lots of things going on. How are you going to cover all of that for every tradition? Well, we look at the main things within each tradition. Again, how do you distinguish what the main things are? Well, study, practice, being from the traditions, having brethren from the traditions, participating in the traditions, and identifying what the priority observances are. Looking at what within the community, within the tradition's own community, what the community practices. Yes, within the community there may be like the stringent, strict, orthodox observance of like all the different details that within that tradition, but then in the same community, the extended community, there are those that are less observant, that kind of people like to say the word pick and choose, but identify what the priority observances are and then observe those. And there's certain sanction from the Orthodox community additionally accordingly, but not saying oh it's okay, but I mean it's just certain um, each one finding its own respective balance. So that's how we identify priority observances and put it together into this handy dandy calendar. So I mentioned yesterday this is a 15-month calendar, 1 year and 3 months. Uh, am I done saying about the description? So I'll say this other part. You like these joints? Just to get it over with, ashy knuckles, yeah, because when I get off the ground, I use my knuckles often. So Oh, yeah. So the other thing I'll share about the calendar is, or just about humanity and life experience on this earth, beyond humanity even, is that things are in cycles. And the cycles tend to be based upon the celestial entities that we are sitting upon and standing upon and lying upon. The soleil, the moon, the earth. So the cycles are the yearly cycle of the Earth's rotation around the soleil. It is the lunar cycle, the monthly things that happen every month or on a monthly basis based upon the full moon and the new moon. And then on a weekly cycle, I say, wait a minute, what celestial portent is doing that? Well, that might be conversation, but every 7 days. On a weekly basis, there are observances. And then on a daily basis, that's the Earth's rotation around its axle. There are certain practices, but obviously, if it's a daily, it's less applicable to this calendar because that's a lot. So we focus on and the major weekly observances, monthly observances, and yearly observances. Um, and I'll just say one other thing in terms of like Mélangé, and it's from this awareness that we can attune, we can connect and strengthen our connection with our own respective heritages, where we come from, our personal selves respectively, and strengthen that connection with our brethren and with our ancestors, and with the ultimate reality, by known by many names and concepts. Um, and then we can also be aware of what's going on around us, particularly as Melanger, and we're connected and aligned and have allegiance with other Melanger brethren who might have different obligations than ourselves, and at least be aware of what they're doing. And say, oh, you got that coming up. Oh, okay, all right, we can expect this, that, and the other. Well, you got that coming up. Okay, cool. Um, and learn about that. But uh, be aware at the very least. But then we can also plan and build and organize accordingly as well. Um, and for those who are so inclined, we can learn, we can participate, we can contribute. That strengthens our experience of Earth connection and Earth citizenship, if you like, world citizenship, global citizenship, all them things. Um, so that's part of the purpose of this calendar: planning, knowledge, relationship, um, upliftment, transcendence. Uh, so each page here is a month, and each of the these would be rows. Each of these rows is the week, and each of the columns, except for this joint, this column, all these other columns are days. So it's like a typical monthly planning calendar. Um, and in this, let's see, this reverse thing. Okay, in this uh, cell in the box here, that is a list of the 12 calendars. So you can look at the names. This is actually the date of the beginning of the month, of that month. Those are the 12 calendars that we follow. And I'll say what those 12 calendars are. Oh, yeah, I got storage issues on this joint, so I might have to do this in two parts, actually, to be honest, because I don't want this to cut off in midway. We'll see it. All right, so at the top is the Earth calendar, and that's a newly constructed calendar that is an amalgamation of all the other 11 calendars. I won't say calendars, and that this is something I work on. I'm shared in the authorship of this, and so this is again, it's a unique calendar that draws from each of the mathematics of the other calendars. I'll give this a lot of information than I was intending. So again, another background thing. There are basically three types of calendars around the Earth. There's a solar calendar that follows the cycle of the Earth around the Soleil. That has 12 months, 365 days, except for leap year every 4 years, which means 366, 366 days. Second calendar, another type of calendar is the lunar calendar. So the lunar calendar is based upon the cycle of the moon around the Earth. And so rather than measuring specifically, or rather than the year being based upon the Earth's cycle around the Soleil, it is based upon 12 cycles of the moon around the Earth. And each month is the same length, thereabouts, meaning that it's basically 29 and a half days. So on the calendar, for lunar calendars, usually the month either has 29 days or 30 days, and usually alternates 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30, or some rendering effectively of that. So by the end of the year, the month has, or the year has, I think it's 354 days, thereabouts. So those are the two type of calendars. Then a subcategory is a combination of those calendars. A lunar solar calendar, whereby it's a lunar calendar, meaning that it follows the months and the monthly cycle of the moon, 29 days, 30 days, 29 days, 30 days, 30, 29, 30, 29, got to do it. But then to account for staying in the same proximity in terms of seasons, and for the observances to occur in the same general period when, according to the Earth's orbit around the Earth, um, there is a leap month every so often, so that the calendar is adjusted to be in the same proximity each year after year. Again, so the observances coincide with the seasons, because the seasons are determined by the Earth's orbit around the Soleil. So those are the first two categories, and the subcategory that's included with that: solar, lunar, and then lunar solar. The third category is a what's it called? Um, Intercalary. I'll call it an intercalary calendar. So in these calendars, and I'll give examples when I go down this list. In these calendars, uh, it's not based off of the lunar cycle. It's not based off the solar cycle. It's based off another number. In the category, or in the examples here, it's a month includes 20 days or 19 days. And then a year includes a certain number of months accordingly. So now, to be honest, that's how the months are constructed. And then at the end of at the end of the cycle, it's generally generally based upon the solar calendar, or the solar methodology of the orbit of the Earth around the Soleil. Um, at the end of the the cycle of months, uh, there tends to be like a leftover number of days in order for it to complete an entire orbit of the Earth around the Soleil. So then there's an intercalary period to account for the remainder of those days. So rather than just having another full month, there's this special period um, that happens. And like I said, I'll give an example when I go down the list. They're actually the last two calendars on the list, the Mayan calendar and the Baha'i calendar. So, anyways, there we go. So those are the three types of calendars. Uh, solar, lunar, and intercalary. Now, the interfaith calendar, this holy Earth calendar that we're utilizing at the top of the list that I just showed a minute ago, it is a combination of all those three approaches. It is a solar calendar in that it is 365 days a year, and 366, 366 on leap year every 4 years. So it's a solar calendar in that sense. It is a lunar calendar in the sense that the months coincide with the cycle of the moon. So um, every 29 days or 30 days, it actually literally rotates. The odd months, 1 through 1, 3, 7, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 y 11, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11 are 30 days, 30 days. And then the even months, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, have 29 days, 29 days. So that totals up to 354 days. Ho ho, confident with the mathematics right there. So then you say, well, how's it going to be solar then? It's not 365. Well, then we have the intercalary period. Oh, that's where the third element comes in. And so then there's an intercalary period of 11 days. And then leap year, it's 12 days. How about that? So it brings in all those elements of each of the three different types of calendars to be one calendar. Now the month the month actually doesn't begin on the lunar cycle as it does with the lunar calendars. So that's one thing, one of the offsets or whatever. But it is consistent throughout the year wherever it begins the year. So if the new moon occurs on the 12th day of the month, then for the rest of that year, up to the intercalary period, it can expect it to be held on the 12th of the month, generally. So there it is. That's how the interfaith calendar works. And so there are certain observances on the calendar that are specific to the Holy Earth calendar and the experience of pluralism and Mélangé. That's the Earth calendar. The second on this list is the Hebrew calendar in the tradition of Israel. The third on this list, which is uh, the Hebrew calendar, is a lunar solar calendar, and the month here is indicated as Elul. Uh, I'll give this other explanation. In reading that top line, to go back to the Holy Earth calendar, to read that, to like decode that. If you're reading from left to right, the first number is the year. So it's Siete Veintiséis is the year, and the HE stands for Holy Earth. Um, so that's the year in the Holy Earth calendar, and that year is based upon the number of years it has that have occurred since the convening of the Parliament of the World's Religions. So recognizing the Parliament of World Religions as an appropriate seminal event of the coalescence, the coming together of the different traditions and communities of the earth. Not perfect, not whatever, but it's we what we work with. So from that, we base this calendar, and so the days and the months are based upon that calendar. The first year, the first day occurs when the conference was begun, when it was commenced, which was the 11th of September, 1893, in the Christian Gregorian calendar. So that's where this is. Now the 126 that you see right after the HE, that's again the year. The point indicates where the month begins, and so it's the first month. And then the next point is the day, and so it's the first day. It's the first month. This is the calendar, the first month. And then the semicolon indicates another break, and so the 73, 73, represents the year it is within since the founding of the United Nations. Again, another seminal event. Ain't perfect, this and the other, but again, we're working with that. So then the next semicolon, one deals with like religious, the other deals with political, and so we recognize both of these as very significant influences within humanity today and on the earth today. After the next semicolon is cuatro, which means that is the day of the week. So if you look here, that's where it is. That's where the calendar begins on that week. So that's the day of the week. And then the next symbol after that number of 4 represents whether it's the period of the full moon or the new moon. So if it's an open circle, that represents a full moon. If it's a dot, it represents a new moon. And so that's indicating a new moon, that it's in the new moon. And then the number that follows it is the day that it is since the most recent occurrence. So it is the 12th day of the new moon. So that's how you read the Holy Earth calendar at the top. And it's just at the top because it is comes from its roots are each of these that follow it that are listed um, accordingly. All right, so next on the list again is the Hebrew calendar. Again, the year 57, 79. The H stands for Hebrew. Elul is the name of the month. Elul is the name of the month, and 11 is the day of the month. And I'll explain what might be perceived as discrepancies later, perhaps if I get to that. Already 40 minutes into this joint. The next one on the list, 2075, 2075. The VK stands for Vikram Samvat. That corresponds with the Hindu tradition. Bhardarvo is the name of the month, and Dose is the day of the month. Elul, the Hebrew calendar, like I said, I didn't say it. The Hebrew calendar is a lunar solar calendar, so the months are based upon the cycle of the moon. So you can see, according to the Elul calendar, or the Hebrew calendar, it is the 11th month of Elul, so it's 11 months since the new moon. But you say, wait a minute, I thought you said it was the 12th day of the new moon. Like I said, I'll explain the discrepancy in a minute. Then the next calendar, the Vikram Samvat within Hinduism, that is also a lunar solar calendar. And the month is Bardovo, and the day is Dose. So that does correspond with the what's listed on the front on the top row. So again, still warrants explanation, but we'll continue on with the list first. The next row is Viente 45, 2045. The VS stands for Vikram Samvat, and that is within the Jain tradition. It is also Bhardarvo because it follows with the Vikram Samvat calendar in terms of the monthly cycle, and so it's the same date except it's a different year. And then we continue on to the next row. It's also a lunar solar calendar, if I need to say that. The next row is the Buddha calendar from the Buddha tradition. It's 2602 is the year, and then the BE stands for Buddhist era. Buddha era, and then again the Bardava Dose is again following from the Vikram Samvat calendar because this is what both traditions emerge with, and so it continues to coincide with that. And again, it's a lunar solar calendar. The next calendar on the next row is the Islamic Hijra calendar, and 47. Excuse me. Wow, 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 wow. Let me pull back, strike that. Let's correct that. The next calendar, after the Buddha calendar, after the Buddha era calendar, and that's what BE stands for again. The next one is the Handi calendar from Chinese tradition. And there are a number of different years that are utilized to describe the calendar. We utilize the 4717 for the year, the version of that. And Bayu is the month, and again, it's a lunar solar calendar as well, so it follows the cycle of the moon, and it has the day 13 of the month. And you say, oh wait a minute, oh you got some explaining to do, right? Next calendar, next row is the Hijra calendar from Islam. That's what the HJ stands for. It is the 1442, year 1442, and the month is Muharram, and the date is Dose. Okay, okay, okay. Now, continuing on to the next row. The Islamic calendar. Ha, now here we go. The Islamic calendar is actually just a lunar calendar, so it doesn't adjust to coincide the observances within the seasonal structure or the seasonal occurrences. It has a different number of days in the year, and that's it. 354 thereabouts. That's it. No leap months. So it's a strictly lunar calendar. Next calendar on the list. Next row is the Christian Gregorian calendar, what's also referred to as the Common Era calendar. And the year is 2019. The month here is September, and the day is Once. And you say, wait a minute, that's a stretch now. You're going all the way Once. Haha, guess what? Christian Gregorian calendar, if you don't already know, is a solar calendar. So they don't. So this Christian Gregorian calendar abstains from coinciding with the lunar month, with the month of the lunar cycle. So it's the months are comparatively structured through different rationales. And so it just happens to be the 11th of September on that day. Like I said, that's where the Holy Earth calendar begins. So this is the first day of the first year, of the first week of the first year, of the first month of the first year. The first day of the first week of the first month of the first year. Ha ha. On the Holy Earth calendar. Next row, the next calendar, is the Nanakshi calendar from Sikh tradition, from Sikhi. And that's what the NK stands for. It is year 551, 551. The month is Badon, and the day is 27. The Sikh Nanakshi calendar is a lunar calendar. Again, the lengths of the months are constructed through a certain mathematics and rationale, but it has 365 days, 365 days in the year, with leap years being 366. 366. So that's the Nanakshi calendar. The next column, or excuse me, the next row is from Zarathustrian tradition. That's what the ZRE stands for. It is the Bastani Fasli reckoning calendar. So within the Zarathustrian calendar, there are actually a number of different calendars within the Zarathustrian tradition. There are a number of calendars. The additional names escape me at the moment. So Each of the calendars have a sort of different methodology of uh, measurement, particularly because of the dispersion of the diaspora of Zarathustrianism. And so through the years, through the centuries, there emerged different methodologies for maintaining the integrity and the mathematics of the calendar. So today, as the diaspora coalesces again and like compares the differences, there's still a number of different ways of doing it. And this again has the significance of when to observe the holy observances. So we utilize the Bastani Fosli reckoning for a number of reasons. I won't get into the details, but that's what it is. Year 37, excuse me, 37, 30, 37, 57, 3757 in the Bastani calendar according to the Fosli reckoning. The month is Badon and the day is the 27th day, 27th day. Excuse me, while I was reading. Wow. Can I get it right, though? Please, thank you. The year is 37, 57 in the Zarathustrian calendar. Bastani calendar, Fosli reckoning. It's Shawwal is the month, and the day is 25. Thank you. Now, continuing on, here we go into the intercalary calendars. The next one is the Mayan calendar. It is according to the Ha'ab count, the long count, the grande count. It is year 51, 32, 5132 in the Ha'ab long count. That's what the HL stands for. The month is Ch'en. Now, in the Mayan calendar, all the months are 20 days, 20 days. It's easy, simple. That's it. Well, how many? That's 20. That's it. Now, it's after 12 months, that's 360 days. So then there's an intercalary period of 5 days. And in increasing coalescence with contemporary practices according to contemporary calendars, uh, there are certain adjustments and there are different ways of counting it. So again, just like within the Zarathustrian calendar, there are a number of versions, particularly amongst those who are students. I'm getting the full warning, so I'm going to wrap this up and then see if I can record the follow-up joint for this. Oh yeah. So anyways, that's the Mayan calendar. Then the 12th calendar on this joint, the reverse, is the Badi calendar from Baha'i faith. And it is year 176 in the Badi calendar. That's what BA stands for. Izat is the month, and Cuatro is the day. And again, the Badi calendar within the Baha'i faith is an intercalary calendar. So it has 365 days in it, but the months are all 19 days. And guess how many months there are? 19! 19 months of 19 days. And that equals up to 351, 351, 361 days. 361, 361 days. So wait a minute, that's not 365. Guess what? Another intercalary period of 4 days, 4 days. And on leap years, it is 5 days. Now, one other thing about the Baha'i calendar is that within recent years, the Universal House of Justice, the governing authority within the Baha'i international community, establishes a direction, a guidance for the Badi calendar. So it's still still an intercalary calendar. However, a number of the observances coming from recognizing the history of the Baha'i faith, coming from an Islamic tradition and methodology, a lot of the occurrences that are commemorated within the high holy Baha'i observances occur during a lunar cycle and according to a lunar measurement. And so recently, the Universal House of Justice decides to continue that legacy, to continue that methodology. So it's still an intercalary period, but a number of the observances, because the events occur according to a lunar count, um, are fixed to a lunar cycle and are measured accordingly. So it still occurs in a certain month on the Baha'i calendar, but in accordance with how many days have occurred since the most recent lunar cycle. So, anyways, that's a little bit of a detail for that. But that's the basics of this calendar. And again, haven't even gone to like the actual observances. This is just like the intro preface. But I am going to pause here because I got a warning about the storage space. And like I said, this joint cuts off and doesn't keep the recording. So I've done this for an hour. I'd like to keep it. So I'm going to leave it at that. So I'm just pause. Part uno complete. Thank you.